A woman gives a fantastic, eye opening perspective on your life and your legacy. Check this out.
This is really interesting, so I just wanted to share. Have you ever thought about this? In 100 years, so like 21, 23, we will all be buried with our families and friends. Strangers will live in our homes that we worked so hard to build, and someone else will own everything we have today. Most of our possessions will be given away or thrown out and destroyed, including the car that we spent a fortune on and will probably be scrapped. Our descendants will hardly know who we are, nor will they remember us. I mean, how many of us know who our grandfather's father was? After we die, we will be remembered for a few more years, and then we're just a portrait on someone's wall. And a few decades later, our history, photos, and deeds disappear into history's oblivion. We won't even be memories. If we pause one day to analyse these questions, perhaps we would understand how pointless it is for us to worry about 95% of the things that consume our minds daily. If we could only think about this, surely our approaches, our thoughts would change and we would do things differently. Perhaps we would feel more free to enjoy ourselves and our lives that we're living. Take these thoughts into the rest of your day, this week, this year, and remember the saying, if it's not going to matter in 5 years, don't spend more than 5 minutes being upset by it.
What do you think of that? Put it in the comments. If it's not going to matter in 5 years, don't spend more than 5 minutes worrying about it. She says, do you know your grandfather? Do you know who your most people don't know who their grandfather's father is. Which begs the question, do you think your children's children will know who you are? It reminds me of how a lot of men are shamed for taking selfies. Oh, you know, that's not what men do, taking selfies. You don't need to be taking pictures of yourself. You know, you need to be, I've always felt that one should document themselves. Because when I think about my great grandfather or my elders or my ancestors, I don't have any photos. And if I do, it's one. Even of my own father from when he was young, I have no photos from when he was in college. But when he was young, it's like, yo, there's nothing to reminisce, to look back on, to say, oh, wow, there's no documentation on what he did and how he moved and how he sounded and how his thought process. You know, my father was born in 1941. I wonder what my father was doing in 1961 when he was 20 years old. 1960 when he was 19. It's nothing. No photos, no nothing. And it reminds me also of things like this podcast, because I have two sons, Law and Maverick. And I want Law and Maverick, when I'm gone, to be able to look back at this stuff and say, that's my dad. I want Law and Maverick's children to look back at this stuff and say, that's my dad's dad. But dig this. I want Law and Maverick's children's children to say, that's my grandfather's father. 2124 is 100 years from now. None of us will really be here. The people that are born today will be 100 years old 100 years from now. And that's if they're lucky. So pretty much everybody on the planet is gone. All of our stuff belongs to somebody else. Everything, the house, the cars, property, all of our stuff belongs to somebody else. Because the year 1924, pretty much all those people are gone too. We got a few that's hanging around a little over 100 years old. Not that many. We're living in an interesting time where technology has allowed us to document ourselves if we desire. And that's why I encourage you to not be ashamed to take as many photos and selfies of yourself as possible so your children's children will know who you are. Let them hear what you sound like. Record video. Document yourself. I'm not saying that you got to look for attention on Instagram and do all of that stuff. That's not what I'm saying. I'm simply saying archive yourself so your ancestors and your legacy will know who you are. Because if you think about it, man, some of these old folk, prior to the technology we have today, they're gatekeepers. And I don't understand why they gatekeep. You know, typically in my family, I can get information when some of the elders are almost checking out. They'll tell me on what, my old uncle did or my grandfather or my grandma, how they moved. But when it's typically when they're checking out and they're like, well, it don't matter now. Oftentimes it's because they want to make it seem like they were something that they're not, or they were embarrassed on who they were and don't want anybody to know. Sluts and hoes was around back then. For all you know, your grandma was one. Drug dealers, pimps, and gangsters, and thugs, and bad guys. Some of your grandfathers was those guys. You would never know because grandpa's so cool. He just be chilling. He minds his own business, sitting in the guest room watching TV all day long. But do you know how he moved 70 years ago when he was in the streets? Document yourself so your children's children will know how you move today. We have the technology to do that. We didn't have it 100 years ago. We have it now. It's right here in your phone. All of you have it. If you're watching this show, you have the technology to document yourself. That's what we learned here today. Do amazing things worth remembering, you guys. That's, how many people have you buried that will be forgotten because they had so little impact on the world? They didn't do much. Don't let that be you. When you document yourself, make sure you're documenting yourself in a manner that people will be proud to see the things that you've contributed to society. And stop fighting. Stop fighting. She didn't mention that part. But stop fighting with your family members. Arguing, is it worth it? It's 2024, you guys. Is it worth it? Because if it doesn't matter in 5 years, then why are you putting 5 minutes of worry on it? I appreciate you guys. Thank you for being here. This is your boy Shannon. Subscribe, like, and share this video. Join the SR Army at srarmy.com, where we take lives to the next level in our Mastermind Alliance. I hope you learned something today. I'm just trying to save you some heartache, headache, money, and time. And you, my friends, are dismissed.